Hello, this is Pastor Schuyler with Berean Baptist Church. I've got a mix of Sumatran and Costa Rican today that's really good, and we have an even better passage in Mark. So let's get into that. As we do, I want to ask you a question, something to think about. What happens to a person when they choose lies over truth? And how can such a person be helped? Our passage is Mark chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. And we pick up again in a synagogue. Probably this is in Capernaum in the Galilee area in northern Israel. And there was a man there which had a withered hand. He had some kind of deformity or injury in his hand. His hand didn't work. And in a society where almost everybody is an agricultural laborer, that's a really big problem. So the man goes to the synagogue. Jesus is in the synagogue. Probably a lot of people are thinking that Jesus is going to heal the man, or may heal the man. And specifically, we meet some people thinking that in verse 2, and they watched him. The they here are religious leaders that have been coming into the area to evaluate Jesus. We've met them before a few times already in Mark. Probably they're coming from Jerusalem. They've heard of this wonder worker in the north, and they want to see what's going on. What they see scares them. They're threatened. And Jesus knows exactly what they're about. Look at what they're doing in verse 2. Whether he would heal him on the Sabbath. Why? That they might accuse him. Imagine this, the terribly darkened heart. And synagogue's not exactly church, but it's a faith community. It's a lot like church, and it's where people would go to hear the word of God. You go to church specifically for the purpose of accusing somebody, specifically to find fault with somebody. That's why you're going to church. And when someone might be blessed, when someone might be healed, when someone's life might be changed, your hope is that you're going to be able to nitpick, to find fault, to accuse. I think if we're being honest, our hearts are not far from there very often. So that's why we're going to talk about how we can be helped in a circumstance like that. And Jesus knows what's going on. He knows exactly what they're about, and he's going to try to reach and to teach these people that have come to discredit him. So in verse 3, he calls the man forward. He has him stand up with his withered hand in front of everybody, and everybody can see that he is in fact disabled, that he's injured. He saith unto the man which had the withered hand, Stand forth. And now, then he turns to the people that have come to discredit him. These people, they are experts in the law. We would call them Bible experts. He says to them, Is it lawful, in verse 4, to do good on the Sabbath or to do evil, to save life or to kill? The Pharisees and the other religious leaders, they made it their life to be knowledgeable about these things. This was their identity. Everybody in the synagogue knows they have an opinion about this. And if anybody asked on any other day, they probably would pontificate for hours and hours and hours about what you can do and what you can't do on the Sabbath. But look at what happens here. In verse 4 at the end, they held their peace. Because this is Jesus, because they're not really here for truth, but rather for an excuse to reject him, they don't say anything. In verse 5, And when he had looked around about them with anger, being grieved at the hardness of their heart. This insincerity that they have, this disingenuity, they bring this to the table, and it deeply grieves and angers Jesus. And that hasn't changed. They've made it their life to study these things. They have opinions, but they won't say anything because they're afraid and because they're not being sincere. And so Jesus heals the man. He said to the man at the end of verse 5, Stretch forth thine hand, and he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Jesus heals the man. What a miracle, what a blessing to everybody that was there, to everybody that will receive the truth. But the religious leaders can't stomach it. They can't be blessed because they've shut themselves up in their own anger and their own insincerity. And so we see the sad result of someone being hardened with wrong priorities and insincerity. The Pharisees went forth and straightway took counsel with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. The one who has come to save them, the one who has evidenced the power to save, the one who is able to actually teach them, the experts, and tell them wonderful, marvelous things that they don't yet know about the Word of God. They commit in their hearts to destroying him because they will not handle the truth. Because they will not love the truth. They would rather have the lie that they think they can control than the truth that will save and bless them, even though it's far beyond their control. The result of this great miracle in the hearts of the religious leaders who should know best, They seek to destroy Jesus. The Herodians here are a political party. The Pharisees are a religious group. And religion and politics normally blend together in Jesus' world. They're not completely separate. But the point here is that we see the powers of religion and politics coming together to try to destroy Jesus. So this is a sad lesson today. This is a sad picture. And we are not far from the Pharisees. Christians, especially conservative, well, really all Christians, but conservative Christians for our own reasons, we are not far from the Pharisees. And we constantly need to check our own hearts, our own priorities. We constantly need to see whether we're choosing the lie that we think we can control or the truth of God that is outside of our control. So, what do we say to this? How do we live, and how can we be helped when we are being insincere? Learn the sad but important lesson. Check your priorities. Ask yourself the question. When you're having a disagreement with somebody, especially in the life of the church, ask yourself a question. Would you rather win the argument, or would you rather see truth prevail? Would you rather be right, or would you rather see a needy person blessed by God? Jesus' priority is to see the truth prevail and to see the needy person blessed by God. Winning the argument's not that big of a deal. It's not that important for everybody to know just how right you were. And check your heart. When being right, quote unquote, matters to you more than being sincere, you bring grief and sorrow to Jesus who saved you, Christian. And you start down a very dark road that will only get worse with every step. So be willing to admit when you might be wrong. Be willing to admit when you don't know. I tell people I don't know is a completely appropriate answer, and very often the most honest and best of all answers. Simply, I don't know. That's okay to say to people. When being right matters more than being sincere, though, you start down that dark road. Choose sincerity. Choose the good of people rather than winning arguments. Don't compromise truth. Don't compromise integrity. But be humble and be truthful, especially with yourself. Wherefore let him that thinketh he stand take heed lest he fall. There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. I hope this has been helpful to you. I'm Pastor Schuyler with Berean Baptist Church. We are doing Bible studies in the Gospel of Mark as I recover from pneumonia. You'll find more information about our church, what we do, what we believe, and who Jesus is in our website, video description, all that good stuff. And feel free to reach out to us if you have questions or thoughts or comments. You'll also find contact information on our website. God bless.